Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So today's upload, as you can tell by the title of this video, is going to be a video about me giving you 5 tips on how to grow larger, better beets. So this is under a hoop house. As you can see, there's a foil, there's a tarp covering this, and the beets have done splendidly well. And I do apologize if you do hear some wind blowing. It is very windy today, and this tarp makes a really loud noise once it blows. It just rustles around. The wind gusts are gusting up to 30 and 40 miles per hour. So let's get into this. But you can see that the beets I have planted here a couple weeks ago, really. I'll include a clip right here from them when they were just germinating. And you can see that right now they have exploded in size. They're a bit crowded in some areas, but that's fine. This soil that I have right here, which brings me to my first tip, is soil basically. So what I have here is leaves and pro mix. So all I did was took leaves from all over the backyard, all over my friend's yard, over my neighbor's yard, and I just piled them here. Then come spring, I piled a bunch of pro mix, and it's just like these large bags of soil, sphagnum peat moss, and I mixed them together. And as you can see, that the soil quality is just ridiculously good. I mean, we are looking at some insanely high nutrition. I also added a lot of bone and blood. You can see that I try squishing it together. It just doesn't hold, which is really good news. A lot of loam, and there are very few weeds. You can see it's predominantly beets. Hopefully you can see the large scope of this, and I've been extremely successful with this. Loose soil is key. You don't need maybe as much of a loose soil as you do for carrots, but it definitely does give you a higher results. Now you can see that the beets are rather crowded in here. Where is this? Where am I? Right here you can see that they have several already plants coming out of one small area, but the thing is that this soil is so loose that once they start maturing, they will push out and kind of bulb out into the soil, and many could fit into one small space. There's a weed that I have to get rid of. So the next tip that I'd like to talk about is planting. So beets are, they come in little seeds, and if you have never seen a beet seed, hold on, let me open up a beet packet and show you what a beet seed looks like. They're these large seeds. They're definitely not small, right? They're not like small like a carrot. They're not as large though as like a pumpkin seed or a squash, but they're definitely sizable. So let me pull out a couple right here. Hopefully you could see what they look like. You could see that they are substantial. They're not huge, but they are very misshapen. They're not uniform at all. Each beet seed has its own little shape, and it's kind of like you won't find a beet seed that is alike. No two beet seeds that are like kind of like snowflakes. And the thing is that they're actually clusters of seeds. It's not just one seed. So when you plant beets, you want to be conservative with the amount of seeds you're planting. Keep in mind that 3 or 4 could grow out of one. But again, one cluster may be completely damaged or destroyed of some sort, so you'll have to plant still 2 to 3 seeds. You don't just plant one because it's a cluster, as that sometimes that used to fool me when I was younger. I used to plant one seed thinking 3 or 4 would grow, and sometimes none would grow out. So definitely plant 3 or 4, and even if 8 or 12 come out, thin it down to 3 to 4, 5 tops. And if you have loose soil, 3 to 4 will be fine in one cell, which brings me to the next point. Plant in cells, not in rows. If you plant in rows, you will often get patchy germination, since when you're planting, especially large areas, you're not going to go through and plant each seed 4 inches or 3 inches apart. That's just a huge waste of time, and many people don't do that. Some people do. Kudos to you. That is very time consuming, and I don't do that. But if what I do is I just plant in cells. So I'll demonstrate what I mean by that. I don't plant in cells, meaning that I plant in those plastic trays. What I mean by that is I plant every several inches. You can see there's a beet cluster, there's another beet cluster, but they're in rows, but they're in clumps. So you can see there's a clump, there's a clump. You may be wondering, well, why wouldn't I just want to have one right here instead of having a bunch right there? That could work again, but with seeding, you'll have germination issues, and often what I find is that you'll have still clumps like this with a good space of absolutely nothing. But with cells, if you plant 4 to 5 seeds, you'll have almost guaranteed germination of at least a couple, and you'll have some coming up every few inches, and those could bulb out, which means you could leave a few more since they have room around each other, not like you would in a row where they are tightly packed. So for me, I found that this is easier. I've been using this for several years, and it's been really it's just increased my harvest, and main reason for that is because of the germination issues that were fixed. And you can see that all throughout this hoop house, it's the same story. A little bit over there is a little bit patchier germination because, again, it was cold when I first planted these. This is under hoop house, so I planted these in February in Chicago, so that's usually not when you're supposed to plant here. Zone 6, zone 5, and you can see there's a little bit some of them are a little bit behind, but overall I was very pleased with this. And I want to talk about the fourth tip. So the next talking point, the next tip that I'd like to bring up is nutrients. So beets, beetroot is a vegetable and a root crop. So for roots, you usually use the P and a K, because usually on bags of fertilizer there's numbers, and there's 3 of them. There's a 3-2-4, for example. The 3 is always nitrogen. The 2, in this case, would be phosphorus, and a K would be potassium. So for beets, you'd like to use a fertilizer that is a little bit lower in nitrogen, as you usually don't grow them for the greens, but you still want to add nitrogen, since greens are the thing, the leaves are the things that make the roots. But mainly try focusing on phosphorus and potassium, as that is really, especially potassium, as that is really necessary for root crops. But both of those are equally as important. Nitrogen, yes, but if you were planting lettuce, for example, you'd probably want more blood meal, more nitrogen. But if you're planting beets, you could eat the greens. That's perfectly fine. But with a little fertilizer of nitrogen, you could get beautiful greens. You just mainly want to focus on the latter part of the two. But really, to be honest with you, you don't really need any hardcore fertilization methods or any pre-planning, any side dressings throughout the season, as beets take 50 to 60 days. They're very short. They're not like tomatoes, where tomatoes are very hard to grow. They need a lot of nutrients to get a great crop, while beets, you could get a great crop with little maintenance. So these 5 tips should really allow you to get good yields. The last tip I would like to include is the temperatures and what beets like and what they don't like. So beets are considered a cool weather vegetable, meaning that they will grow more reliably in cooler weather. So when I planted these beets, I planted them when this ground was still frozen. So this was still really cold, but I put on a tarp, and this really heated things up drastically. And during the day, it gets to 70s, 80s up here, which is a little bit too much. But the beets are very tolerant, which is another thing. They are tolerant for heat, but if it gets into the 90s, 100s day by day, you live in the southern U.S., then you may want to not grow beets at that time, maybe when it's cooler in the wintertime, because beets will then bolt and produce seeds. And seeds is, when they produce seeds, they will ruin their root, and they take all the nutrients from there, and they won't really produce a good bulb. So that is definitely something you want to keep in mind. Plant it when it's cool. They are tolerant of frost. It could get down to 32, 31, and they will be perfectly fine. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all guys on the next video. So thanks. See ya.